Hello everyone. Today we're going to go through the KubeSlice open source installation. Here you'll see on the right hand side of my screen I have the terminal that we're going to use to actually execute the commands, and on the left side of the screen really depicts the environment that we're going to build out today. So as you can see here, I have a controller cluster that's living in GKE in the US Central 1 region. Worker 1, also a Google cluster that is in the US East region, and then another one in the US West region. So the steps that we're going to perform today are we're going to install the KubeSlice controller. Then we're going to register these two worker clusters with the controller. And then we're going to install the slice operator on top of those worker clusters. And before we do that, just a little housekeeping over here. I've created a couple aliases that are really just setting the context so I can move cleanly between each of the different clusters that I have, and I've shortened the kubectl command to just a K just for efficiencies. Here in my terminal I have the different YAML files that we're going to use today that we're going to populate going through the documentation. So in order to obtain KubeSlice, you can go to github.com/KubeSlice here. And then if you scroll down to the Getting Started guide, you can click on Read Our Documentation, which will bring you to this page. And we're going to click on Getting Started with Cloud Clusters, since I'm using Google for my clusters. Before you actually get started with that, please make sure that you visit the prerequisites section to make sure that your clusters have enough horsepower to perform, as well as all the other prerequisite sets that are required to operate KubeSlice. So we're going to click on Getting Started with Clusters. Here's the prerequisite page. Just make sure you have the supported Kubernetes version, etc., and it goes through some of the different roles. Another key area that you want to do is make sure that you are able to label your nodes, which I've already done for this demo. So please feel free to go through this portion of the documentation. Which brings us to installing KubeSlice. So there's really 5 main components, and we're going to focus on just the top 3 for right now. Again, just reiterating, installing the KubeSlice controller. We're going to create a project, and then we're going to register those 2 worker clusters depicted here. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get started. So again, it's telling you please go through and visit the prerequisites, and we're going to go through the documentation so you can see firsthand. So here we need to install the KubeSlice cert manager onto the controller cluster. So I'm just going to clear my screen here, and we're going to go over to the demo controller. And now that we're here, we're just going to run this helm command. And we should see the expected output as indicated here on the screen. Okay, the cert manager has been installed successfully. And now we'll move on to the next step. So creating the values file, which I have depicted here as controller_values_file.yaml. And this is the mock-up of what the YAML needs to look like. That's already here in the screen. So what we really need to fill out on this form is just getting the endpoint for the cluster API. So here on the controller cluster, we're just going to run kubectl cluster info. And the output that we're looking to take is this value right here. So I'm going to copy and paste that into the YAML file. I'm going to save that. And then we're going to apply it. So right now I have the controller YAML file sitting in my directory, and so I'm going to take this command, paste it here, and just change the value of the YAML file to reflect controller_.yaml. I'm sorry, controller_values. And from here we will install this as well. After a minute or so, you should see the expected output is here in the documentation, that this was installed successfully, and indeed it is. And so what we're going to do now is just validate that the pods for the controller are actually running. We should see something similar to what's going on here on the screen. So we can just copy and paste this guy, and one of them still needs to come up. And there we go. So now both pods are running, so that was successful. The next step in the video is we're going to create the project namespace. And here is the YAML file that you would copy and paste into your own, which I've already got here set up, called project.yaml. So what we need to do is to give the project a name, really, and this is arbitrary. It can be whatever you want. So in this case, I'm going to call it Snickers, because who doesn't like a Snickers bar, right? And in the service account section, you add the users that you want to have access to the KubeSlice controller, and you can make these be whatever they need to be. So for myself, I'm going to create myself just both a read-only and a read-write account just to demonstrate. So once I've done that, I'm going to save this file, and I'm going to go ahead and apply this on the KubeSlice controller namespace. I'm going to copy this in, change the name of the YAML file just to be project. Project.yaml. And we can see that the project was created. So just to verify, we're going to do a kubectl get project on this namespace, the KubeSlice controller namespace, and you can see that it's been created here. And so now that we're going to validate that the two service accounts that I created here are actually created. So we're going to do a KubeSlice get SA for service account -n KubeSlice project name, which is actually Snickers. And here we can see both of those users were created successfully. So now that we've done this, I'm going to clear the screen, and we're going to move on to registering the worker clusters, which will be these two clusters in the different regions. So in order to do this, we're going to run through and install Istio into these clusters. So it's telling us to switch context to make sure that we're in the KubeSlice controller, which we already are. So we're just going to begin here. So we're going to create the Istio system namespace. Which was created, and then we're going to install two of these Helm charts into that new Istio system namespace. Okay, now that we have the base system installed, we're going to go ahead and install the Istio discovery component. As soon as that's done installing, we'll go ahead and do the validating of the Istio installation. There we go, successfully installed. Clean up the real estate and maybe make our terminal just a little bit bigger. Alright, so now that we've got that running, let's just make sure that the Istio pods are running on the controller. Okay, as you can see, it's running. And so the next step is really creating the cluster registration for each of the YAMLs. So here I have a registration.yaml file, and in this YAML file we list out all of the clusters that we need to register with the controller. So the first thing we're going to do is just verify that the information here is correct on the screen. So worker 1, if we go back to our drawing, is in US East. We're going to change the project name to Snickers that we created earlier. The second worker cluster is in US West 2, so that is valid, and then we're going to change the project name to Snickers as well. And so in the documentation, It gives you the skeleton here of what you'd need to fill out along with the example, which you can compare to here that's on the screen. And then we're going to apply this inside the controller cluster. So we're already in the controller. I'm going to clear this, give us a little bit more real estate here. And then we're going to apply this into the project namespace. So our project namespace is Snickers. It's KubeSlice Snickers. And the name of the registration file is just registration.yaml. And we are going to run this. And so now these two workers are created. And so the next thing we're going to do is move on to doing the installation of the slice operator. So we're going to go back to the controller cluster, because in these slice operator files, we need to get some base encoded 64 strings to populate this file. So again, I'm going to clear the real estate here, and we're going to go ahead and get the secrets that are required. So the project name is Snickers. We're going to edit that, run that. And so what we're interested in is getting the secrets from this worker 1 here and worker 2 to populate our file. So we're going to do this, and there's two files. There's a worker 1 and a worker 2.yaml. So we'll start with worker 1. And if we come here, we're going to get the secrets of the worker cluster secret name, which is this value. So I'm just going to highlight that there for a second. And this is the command that we're going to use to grab those values. So I'm going to paste this in here, and we're going to change the project name to be Snickers. And then we're going to change the value to get the secrets from worker cluster 1 from the output of the get secrets command, which is this guy right here. So we're going to get the secrets from this slice worker. We're going to do the output as a YAML file, which will give us the values that we need, and we'll cut and paste those values up into the file above. So the first thing we need to take is the namespace, which is here. So we're going to take the value for this and populate it here. And then we're also going to get the endpoint, which is the controller endpoint here. We'll take this value, copy it, paste it here. The CRT token is here, which we're going to grab the whole string to the end. We're going to copy that, paste this in here. And then we're going to take the token string, which is here. Okay. All right. So we're going to save this file, and then we're going to move on to the second worker. So we're going to clear the screen, reset our real estate. We're going to get the secrets again. So we're going to get the secrets from Snickers, and we want to take this guy. So we'll just do this. Use our command history, save us a little typing, and we're going to replace this with worker 2. Okay. Once again, we're going to take the namespace value first, populate the file. We're going to take the endpoint, populate the file. We're going to take the CACRT. We'll do a little bottom-up scenario in this one. Take this, and then we will take the token value, and we will place it here. Okay, I'm going to save this file as well. So now that we've got those values, we're going to create the slice operator. So in order to apply those values, we're going to switch our context now to each of those different clusters. So as you recall before, I have a couple aliases, so we're going to start with demo worker 1. So now I'm in this cluster, and we are going to take the command here to do the install. We're going to replace the name of the YAML file with slice operator worker 1. .yaml, and we're going to do the Helm install of this. So this will take a minute or so just to do the apply of that. And then once that's done, here we go, that's successful. We'll clear the screen, and then we're going to validate it. So we're going to grab the pods and just make sure that they're all running without any errors. So as you can see now, the pods are still creating. And I will pause the video here until they've all started. Okay, all of our pods are running successfully. So what we'll do now is we will switch context over to the second cluster and repeat the process. So again, my alias, we're going to go to demo worker 2. Give us some more real estate, and then we're going to do the installation of the file again. Matter of fact, I'm just going to use my command history and just change the value to worker 2. We're going to apply that. And once this is done, we're going to validate that the slice operator installation was successful and verify that all the pods are running correctly in the KubeSlice system namespace. There we go. So now let's go ahead and make sure our pods, they're still creating and starting. So let me pause the video here until they're done. Okay, we can see that all the pods are now running successfully. So that concludes today's demo around installing KubeSlice open source. And just to do a quick recap of what we did here today. So we installed the controller cluster, and then we registered these 2 worker clusters with the controller, and then we installed the slice operator on each of these worker clusters. So thanks for joining me today. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section of the video, and we'll reply back to you shortly. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.